Hello everyone and welcome to this special World Rhino Day presentation. My name is JP and I'll be your host for today's session on how technology can help save rhinos and other endangered species. Today's session will be approximately 60 minutes long and all participant lines will remain mute during the event. However, I'm sure you'll have questions and we encourage you to ask them, and you can do so by tapping the questions box on your webinar control panel as depicted on the screen. Please remember, you can submit your questions at any time. However, we will not be addressing them until the end of the presentation. And we have an amazing panel prepared for you today, and our presenters are Dearlove, Rhino Ray, book author and former TEDxSydney Speaker. Dearlove, enChoice's advisor on endangered species, is a South African-born conservationist and co-founder of the Australian Rhino Project. He brings deep expertise in rhino preservation and supports initiatives like Spark to protect endangered species. Ray is also a published author of The Crash of the Rhinos and Tales of Two Countries. And our second presenter is Tony White, founder and chairman of enChoice and founder of Spark. Tony White is a pioneer in the enterprise content management industry with 15 years at IBM before launching multiple successful technology startups. He also founded the Spark project, Stop Poaching and Rhino Killing, using innovation and partnerships to help save rhinos and other endangered species from extinction. And our last presenter of the day is Linda Lanzl, founder and president of Safe Worldwide. Linda founded Safe Worldwide, a non-profit organization to protect endangered species and stopping illegal wildlife trafficking. Safe Worldwide works with other organizations who support anti-poaching efforts and projects that help endangered wildlife and their habitat. Okay, so now let me give you a brief overview of what we're going to discuss today, and we'll start off with Ray giving us the big picture on rhinos and why they need us now. After, Tony White will tell us how a tech company joined the fight and how AI can be a valuable ally for rhinos and other species. And finally, Linda will show us real-life technology conservation projects in action. We'll finish with a Q&A and close the session by sharing simple but meaningful ways we can all make a difference. And we'll start this special World Rhino Day presentation with a short but powerful poem by Dearlove, one that captures his deep passion and love for the rhino cause.
This poem is called My Son by Dearlove. As we wander slowly through the glade, I watch my firstborn searching for shade. Soon it will be night, with a full moon burning bright. No natural enemies on the plain, certainly confident, perhaps even a little vain. So little, but he already has the strut. Superior to all animals, no ifs, no buts. The moon is high, it could be daytime. I am blessed with my little man, approaching his prime. I feel the pain before I hear the shot. A deep burning pain in my side, burning hot. My son runs towards me, terrified. I breathe hard, running for the forest. We must hide. We crash through the bushes, the trees. More shots, so close. When will it cease? Deep in the bush we stop, searching for a thicket of thorns. All these people want is my horns. Why must they kill me to win their gory prize? I really wish that mine were not such a great size. I lay down to rest, my boy by my side. We must be deathly quiet and hide. How long can I withstand this terrible pain? I must rise. I stand, but then I fall again. We stumble a few steps, him nuzzling my neck, sobbing, crying, am I okay? He wants to check. My world goes dark and black. Someone, anyone, please save my son from this cruel attack.
And there really isn't a better way to introduce Ray than through one of his heartfelt poems. Ray is enChoice's advisor on endangered species, and today he'll be giving us the big picture on rhinos, their challenges, their future, and why they need us. Ray, thank you so much for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, JP. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to thank the folks from enChoice, the ones that I've dealt with directly, Judy Roman, JP, and Tony, of course. And we welcome this opportunity to tell you a little bit about rhinos and other endangered species. And specifically, while the headline news has gone away, so you don't have any news on the front page anymore. It's kind of hidden away in the back pages. But let me assure you, having been in South Africa less than 6 weeks ago, the battle continues. And we lose one rhino a day. That may not seem a lot, but when you count what that actually means, it means that there will be sometime in the future that your children / grandchildren will be the last, perhaps, to see rhinos in the wild. And I stress in the wild. So this talks a little bit about the plight of the rhinos and why they need us more than ever. This is, again, an outstanding initiative from enChoice, Tony and his team. So now a little bit about where we're actually at. There are 5 species that are left in the world, and they're all endangered. And let me assure you that if you think that this is somebody else's problem, in the last, on our watch, 2 years, we've lost one species, the southwestern rhino, black rhino, and the second one is the northern white rhino, which is they're actually ladies, are kept in a secure farming area or wildlife sanctuary in East Africa. More than that, I can't tell you. So the sole remaining male died 2 years ago, and so there's just these 2 left. They're too old to reproduce. So you can effectively say that sometimes, well, they're gone. I mean, people talk about putting IVF in. Yes, that would be an answer perhaps, but the reality is that the gestation period for a rhino is of the order of 16 months, which is a hell of a long time. All you ladies listening in, that's a long time. So we have once every 16 months, the mother might reproduce, and then she only drops 1 calf at a time. So you can talk of around probably 3 years from date of pregnancy until the time that the new babe is born. So it's not as if IVF can't work. Sure, it can work, but you're fighting against the odds when you try and take on numbers and volumes that are required to keep these animals safe. I must distinguish between the different rhinos, and there are only 5 species of rhinos left, and they are severely endangered. On our time on this, in my involvement in this, these animals are depleting at this rapid rate of 1 per day. Now you ask yourself, why are they poached? And a lot of it is money based. When I was heading the Australian Rhino Project, which was planned to bring rhinos out from Southern Africa to Australia, I tried to think laterally, and I actually wrote to the fellow who was the CEO of Pfizer at that time. His name is Ian Reid. And I wrote to him and said to him, why don't we do a joint project here, which might be naive, but you don't know until you try. And we'll do a joint marketing effort, and using something like the image that you see on your screen that says that Viagra works, and that's indicative of the way it droops or not. Viagra works, and rhino horn does not. So that's just an attempt at some levity of a very, very serious problem. All this is make-believe, because effectively the horn is just is keratin, as in your fingernail, so it has no magical potional powers from there on in. So one of the reasons is that the belief is that it enhances your sexual performance. Now, again, let me assure you that that's a nonsense, quite honestly. But there's a whole collection of people who believe it till the end. There's a fellow, I think it was in Thailand, it was a military fellow, and he got cancer. And they tried everything, including rhino horn, and miraculously he survived for a period of time. And I don't know what's happened to him since, but the belief was that cancer can fix your issues just because of the sample of one. So this is what we're up against. Eastern medicine works on a hot and cold property basis. So there's a belief that the rhino horn has a cooling property. So if your son or daughter or someone has a fever, if you rub this into their arms or they ingest it, that person will get better. Again, unproven and without a doubt a nonsense. And the kind of final one of the main ones is it's a status symbol because it's so damn expensive, which is about $65,000 US per kilo. It becomes a status symbol. If I go around to Tony's house for dinner tonight, I'll take him a slice of rhino horn, which demonstrates how successful I am. I respect you, and please have this as a gift from us. That's what we're fighting against. There's a belief amongst younger generation that there's a cure for hangover is yet another one of these. I just have to smile. The belief is if you take it after your hangover and you ingest this, that your hangover will go away. And again, I haven't proved this personally, but I know someone who has. And but he was more on point one, and that hasn't worked. The reality is, as I said, we're talking about keratin, the stuff from your hair or your fingernails. And again, this is just I can only say it's a nonsense. I don't know where this is. I mean, it's been going for centuries, but it's really accelerated in the last 20 years or so. What is very difficult to perhaps portray as you sit in your offices or wherever you might be listening to this presentation is that is it need or is it greed? Now, I've written a poem on this. I write some poetry, and basically what it does, it tells the story that the poacher, she or he does it for being able to draw some money, get some money and to feed his family. That's one reason. The other reason is it's the international crime syndicates, where this is driven by them, same people who do weapons, they do people smuggling, they do drugs, and they do endangered wildlife, of which there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different types that they use. I guess the most popular is rhino horn by a long shot, and just the amount of money is staggering. If you work out that an average horn is 7 kilos and so many a kilo per day, per week, per month, per year. You'll see how much money is invested in this by the syndicates and why people are prepared to risk their lives to get this rhino horn. So I wrote a little poem here, which I hope you'll bear with me on it. It's called, Is It Need or Is It Greed? And here we go. Today a poacher died, not of sickness nor disease. He was shot while yet another rhino horn he tried to seize. On bail he was, for what crime you ask? He shot an orphan rhino. Sabi was his name, a little fellow whose front legs had been hacked. His mum, yet another helpless victim of the poaching. His courage and cheeky attitude had brought him a wee bit of fame. The poacher worked the farm where Sabi lived. Sabi knew him and ran to him as little ones do. The poacher, callous and cruel, shot him dead and dug his tiny horns from his head, all for 30 pieces of silver. Tonight, another poacher will take his chances. They'll hit the rhinos at the nearby ranches. His family of 7 all need food. He has no job. A first for him, he'll join this killing mob. But first to the witch doctor to be smeared with muti. Nobody can see them, nobody can hear them. Now protected from all the danger, from lions and leopards and the guns of rangers. They walk and they run. It seems like hours, but they are fine. They have the muti powers. Now they see it, the rhino's midden. It's a big one. See her horn. Very soon it will be sawn. Hear the shot. See her fall. His hands are shaking. He saws and saws. His hands are bloody. Her face is raw. Back at home, his young wife waits. Her caring man has met his fate. He did his best, but now he's gone. We need to eat. Next time I'll send my son. I find that hard, despite the fact that I actually wrote it. The muti is an interesting one. I can't tell you what it is, but it's like lion's bones, and then there's a whole collage of stuff that's included in the stuff. And the belief is amongst these poachers who wouldn't be well educated, and there's a proven case where a ranger caught one of the poachers, and the poacher said, "How did you know where I was? You can't see me." So that's how deep the belief goes. So this slide is relevant because of where the action is or where the action isn't. So if you look at the top right-hand side, that's Zimbabwe, and you go down to the Limpopo province, and all the below the Zimbabwe and Botswana is South Africa, and it used to be the home of the rhinos. Now, one must understand that if you see Mozambique down the side on the right, majority historically of the poachers have come over the border from Mozambique into South Africa. Now, it's not hard. You literally walk across it. There's no fences and one thing and another. So the majority come there, and they'll run for hours and hours, take the horn, be back in Mozambique by the following night. So that's essentially the modus operandi, which is now changing to a degree because they've virtually wiped out the rhinos in Kruger National Park, which is just unbelievably heartbreaking. Noting that Mozambique is the 7th poorest country in the world. So the people living on or below the poverty line, this is an absolute gift for them in terms of joining a poaching group, possibly getting killed, but the odds are 50-50 because they don't have a shoot to kill policy in Kruger National Park. I'm sure many people will put their hands up for that one, but you can't do that. So that's just trying to give you perspective. And there's no rhinos to speak of north of on this slide, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and there's a small lot of black rhinos in Namibia. So that gives you a feel for the geographics and the logistics that are at play here. The next slide really tells the story. Now, the peak was 2014, and there were 1,200 odd that were slaughtered. The graph, as you see, took a drop for a short time here. The reason I don't know, and it seems to have flattened it out. Now, one of the reasons it flattened out because there's not that many rhinos left on this planet Earth. So they're moving further and further afield, the poachers are, from the Kruger National Park into private reserves where people preserve sanctuaries, they preserve their rhinos, and that's now where the poachers have moved into, is into the private game reserves where the security is less and the stakes are high. So that accounts for some of the reduction there. How many left in Kruger? We haven't addressed that really well. When we were there 6 weeks ago, I spoke to the head ranger who had come to her, and I said, "Are you winning?" And she said, "No, we're not winning this." That same weekend that we were there, the poachers knocked out 4 rhinos just in the area that we were at, which is in the south of the Kruger Park. If there's some people who've been to the Kruger Park, they would know exactly where it is, right down the bottom, close to Mozambique. So there's probably 200 at best of black rhinos, southern black rhinos, and there's probably 2,000 or 3,000. I know that's a wide range, but they don't know all the time, of southern white rhinos. At some point in the last, just not too far distant future, there were literally thousands, 5,000, 6,000, and now that they reckon there might be 2,000 to 3,000 in the Kruger Park, which is absolutely devastating. They have many, many means, these poachers, at their disposal. The one which really does horrible things for me, I've got to say, is the most recently, the rangers found you can picture this in your mind, they found a water hole, and there were animals all around the water hole. And what these bloody poachers had done, put poison, cyanide, in the water hole so that the animals came to drink. They dropped dead. The scavengers, like the hyenas, came. They dropped dead, and it was to me, it's just the most cruel thing. It was vultures, it was hyenas, it was jackals. The only enemy that a rhino has is us, is a human. I mentioned Kathy Dreyer. The slide you see there of Kathy is in the middle. I'm who I am, and my wife Margaret. We spent some time with Kathy, who's the head ranger. It doesn't get any more powerful than that for Kruger National Park. You'll see she's got one of my poetry books. This is where she said, we are not winning this war. If you put that into the future, she'll never give up, this woman. She's a really tough person. But as the rhinos become less and less, they'll still poach them, the poachers. And what they'll do, they find a little rhino whose mother they shot, and they would shoot her as well, and it's just absolutely endless about what they do. They'll actually go to the extent, I get a little bit emotional with some of the stuff, so please forgive me. But to save themselves the trouble of finding this self-same rhino, they actually dig the balance of the horn, which is probably about an inch, into the skull. So they'll dig the rhino horn that's left in the animal with a knife, and that itself pays for that jaunt as much as anything else. She was an absolutely delightful woman, and I felt strongly about that it was in good hands. It's hard to say, but it is in good hands. And for any of you who may travel to Southern Africa, or I guess Asia, my private interest is Africa. We always take with us some clothing and some toys and some games and one thing and another, which we hand out to the rangers. This particular visit, we had a dozen what would be golf shirts, T-shirts, which we gave to her for her female rangers, because there are only a dozen or so out in the field. And they're always very grateful for what we do. And I encourage you, if you're going that way, do that. The next one that I would like to talk to is this little rhino whose name, all the rhinos are given names. So this little fellow's name is Binti, who's had an interesting background. His mother was shot. They found this little fellow in a waterhole, couldn't get out, and we happened to be at the lodge at the time. Anyway, with lots of huffing and puffing, they got this little chap out, and then, believe it or not, we were going further afield, and we came across this little thing. This was about 2 years ago, max, and she was being hand-fed by these wonderful women, and they're all women who look after these animals night and day. It can break your heart, but it's just a delightful little thing. And when you hear if you hear a rhino baby cry, it's just like listening to a child. It tears at your heartstrings. A couple of years ago, I was very fortunate to meet with Dame Jane Goodall. She would be one of the most familiar faces on the planet for her work that she's done with endangered species and chimps particularly, which are as endangered as the other animals. I met her at a conference. I got some time with her, and I'd like to think we became friends. She was admired and inspired by what you guys are doing, because that's what she wants as well, is pure make it work, make it happen somehow. But for God's sake, trying to alleviate the pain of these little rhinos and the death of their parents.
Hello, this is Jane Goodall. I wish I could actually be with you, but I'm sending a message from the other side of the world. I just want to thank you for attending this evening, because it's such an important initiative, the Australian Rhino Initiative. And, so many animals are becoming endangered everywhere. I've seen the decline of rhinos in Africa, and it's absolutely shocking. They are critically endangered now. And it's just because people in Asia, particularly Vietnam, feel that there's medicinal value in their horns. Do you know some people even take the rhino horn powder for hangovers? That's just appalling. And there's an awful lot of poverty in Africa, and we need to alleviate that poverty. We need people to withstand bribes, and if they're really poor, they won't. We need to educate, we need to help the people and the governments understand that these animals are worth more alive than dead. The tourist industry is really providing an awful lot of income to many of these African countries. We just have to get together around the world and support efforts to protect rhinos and other endangered species. We don't want our great-great-grandchildren to know rhinos only from picture books or a few sad specimens left mouldering in zoos. So thank you for being there tonight. Thank you for supporting Ray. Thank you for doing your bit to help the rhinos survive. And have a wonderful evening.
And as an old African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think that is such a message. And I'd like to put a link, Jane, to that, because that's what she's done. She's inspired that many people around the globe that they are now fully briefed of what Jane Goodall does and what she will continue to do, and her successors will do the same, I have no doubt. To wrap up this particular session, I'd like to thank Tony and the full team, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you're doing for the rhinos. We need to get the focus on it so that people know that on their watch, it's highly likely that there's going to be another species which goes extinct. Now, I'm a realist. I realize that little insects are important to protect, but the rhino is the poster girl when it comes to the endangered species. It's important for an organization which is on the map as opposed to Pete and Johnny type of thing. So that's important. And Tony, I've known Tony for 50 odd years. He's an exceptionally gifted and generous man in everything that I've certainly had dealings with him. So Tony, you've added so much, and I'd like to thank you for what you've contributed financially and emotionally and the rest, and for the leadership specifically with this aspect of your business, because that's what it is. So thank you very much, and let me hand over to Tony now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray, my good friend. The work you do is truly impressive and very important to the planet. I particularly want to focus on the slide where you spoke about walking together, because in enChoice, that's what we want to do. And that is why we've set aside a program like today in honor of World Rhino Day, and we've got partners working with us. I want to talk a little bit about something we call Spark. What is Spark? It's our major philanthropic endeavor. In enChoice, we've always wanted to give back, and we do in many ways. But in particular, we think using our skills, which are essentially technology and working in an area that is really important, as you've heard and will continue to hear, for the planet, is something that would be really rewarding for us. So we have a program called Spark. There's a lot behind it, and certainly recommend, if you want to get some information and history, take a look at our website, click on the rhino icon on the front page, and you'll get a lot of information. Let's talk a little bit about what the basis of Spark is and how it came about. Spark stands for Sentinel Protection Against Rhino Killing. And essentially the issue there when we thought about rhinos is rhinos have no natural protective instinct, because essentially a healthy rhino cannot be attacked by any other animal other than humans. And the rhino is not aware that humans are such a terrible threat to them. So collaring a rhino has no real effect, because basically by the time you get a warning, the rhino is already dead, and there's basically nothing you can do about it except possibly have a gun fight with the poachers, which doesn't help anybody either. So the whole idea of using protective animals was one that was developed. This is not new to mankind. I mean, obviously, throughout human history, dogs have provided sentinel capabilities. And there's the historic story from ancient Rome where sentinel geese actually alerted the Romans of an attack from the Gauls. And thanks to the warning of the geese, that attack was repulsed. That's a legend, but may well be true. So the sentinel animals we focused on are ungulates, such as zebras, wildebeest, kudu, and others. These are animals that are highly sensitive to threats of all kinds. And the project was born with that concept in mind, originally through our partners, a game park in South Africa called Welgevonden and Wageningen University out of the Netherlands. And it was so interesting and so impactful that IBM and some other major corporations got involved. And in fact, IBM had a major nationwide advertising campaign. I'm going to play that quickly for you because I think it gives an idea of just how important this project could be.
This endangered species is getting help from some unexpected friends. The zebra and antelope. They're wearing IoT sensors connected to the IBM cloud. When poachers enter the area, the animals run for it, which alerts rangers who can track their motions and help stop them before any harm is done. It's a smart way to help increase the rhino population and turn the poachers into the endangered species.
So our role at enChoice, which we were very honored to be appointed to, was to provide project management. And in fact, the project made excellent progress. A successful pilot was conducted where we had a contained area with representative animals, all of which had sensors on them. And we were able to prove that the AI, which essentially was focusing on detection of a threat and classification of that threat. So what was it? In this case, a human intrusion was able to be identified. And once we had done that, knowing where authorized humans are in a game park, we would know that something unexpected was happening and we could move into that area, put a drone in there quickly to take a look, and move manpower in there to protect against threats. This would in turn protect not only the threatened animal, but also the poachers who also run a considerable risk, putting their lives at stake. So this pilot project, of which there's a detailed scientific paper which you'd be able to access on our website, showed that one could reduce the probability of success by poachers from in the 90% to single digits. And that is so significant that the whole economics of rhino horn poaching would be much less attractive. As you heard from Ray, it's economically very viable at present, but if we could change those economics, that would change everything. So all systems were ready to go with the major project. Our previous CEO, Dave Parks, and I actually had a booking to go to South Africa for the project launch. Obviously, this would be at Welgevonden, together with the other major players, particularly IBM and a major cell phone company and others. And unfortunately, at that point, we were all struck by COVID, and that changed everything. Basically, the project stalled because nobody could visit. Many of the outside players were not resident in South Africa. And basically, those major players never came back. This was about a 3-year delay by the time everything had washed out. Dave and I were lucky that just 2 weeks before we were to leave, everything was put on hold. Otherwise, we would have spent several years in South Africa. And whilst I'm from there and certainly can appreciate it, I don't think our families or businesses would have been too happy. So we were kind of saved from a difficult problem, but the implications of COVID were terrible for the project. But on the positive side, enChoice did not go away. We already had people out on the game park. We kept them there, and we continue to work with our local partners, changing our approach to something that I called a bite-sized approach, where we found small elements that we could use to protect animals and make the probability of poaching much lower. And I might add, Welgevonden, with all the steps that have been taken, has never lost a single animal to poaching, which is incredibly impressive. And if we could transplant that to other areas of Africa, it could have a huge effect. So we still felt that we're doing really important work, but that work had changed. We, as I mentioned, we're using smaller steps, and we were focusing on a wider level of species than just rhinos, although our key focus would still remain rhinos. So in order to reflect that, we slightly rebranded Spark to stand for Stop Poaching instead of Sentinel Protection, although we certainly were not abandoning the idea of sentinel protection, and rhino killing would still be our focus. So that kind of better reflected what we did and reflected the fact that our project at this point in time had changed remarkably. So in order to do that, we had some missing elements. We didn't, other than Welgevonden, we didn't have a good way of widening our focus. And in addition to that, we'd held up on asking people to help by donations because basically we didn't have a vehicle other than what we were spending to spend that money. But in terms of relaunching everything, a vehicle to enable donations would be really critical, amongst the many other measures that we'd be asking people to conduct. So we were able, through connections, to find an excellent way of meeting these requirements, and that is through a partnership with an organization called SAFE Worldwide, Saving Animals from Extinction. The founder of that organization is Linda Lanzl, and she is also the chief executive. She visited Welgevonden recently to endorse our activities, and I'm sure she'll say a bit about that, but we're very privileged to have Linda as our final speaker. I think you're really going to enjoy what she has to say. So within the context of my description of where enChoice is, I'm very proud to hand you over to our partner in this endeavor, Linda Lanzl. Over to you, Linda.
Thank you for the introduction. Good day, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you. My name is Linda Lanzl, and I'm the founder of Safe Worldwide. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about our organization. First of all, Safe Worldwide is a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting endangered species and the habitats that they call home. We work hand in hand with our global partners to stop poaching, combat the illegal wildlife trade, and support local communities who are on the front lines of protecting wildlife. Our vision is to ensure that both people and animals can thrive together on planet Earth, not just for today, but for generations to come. Before we actually dive into solutions, I'd like to offer a look at where we are today. The numbers around wildlife conservation are staggering. Right now, more than 1 million species are at risk of extinction from either habitat loss, pollution, exploitation, climate change, and even invasive species. And that's based on a UN-led report. over 8,000 mammals, fish, and bird species are already classified as threatened or endangered. Whale populations today have declined by 90% in just the last century. And it's not just about animals. Illegal wildlife trafficking has grown into a $23 billion industry, fueling crime networks and pushing species to the brink. In fact, we've lost 60% of wild animal populations in the past 50 years alone. Now, you got to take that in. Think about how much impact we've had on our planet in just the last half a century. These are the challenges conservation faces today: habitat loss, poaching, human-wildlife conflict, and even lack of real-time data to respond quickly to situations is all affecting species around the world. And this is the reality we're working against. And it's also the reason why innovation and collaboration and action are more urgent than ever. Now, we often think of conservation as saving wildlife, but in truth, it's really about saving ourselves, because when nature suffers, so do we. Healthy ecosystems keep nature in balance, sustaining life on Earth, and even providing the medicines that heal us. Every species, from the smallest insect to the elephant, plays a role in that balance. And when one species disappears, the whole web weakens, including us. And our forests, our wetlands, and our oceans act as the planet's lungs and thermostat, storing carbon and protecting us from climate extremes. And as nature falls out of balance, we all see the effect. And we are all aware of recent wildfires, record heats, and severe droughts affecting the planet today. Look, conservation is not charity, it's survival. Protecting wildlife means protecting the very systems that give us air, water, our food, and the hope for the future. And the fate of nature and humanity are inseparable. Now, I know it seems kind of bleak. However, there is hope. And today's technology, including AI, is rewriting the rules of conservation. Instead of reacting after the damage is done, we now have the ability to predict and prevent threats before they happen. Advancements in technology can now scan satellites and cameras and sensors to spot poacher patterns that people miss. Data that once took months to analyze is now delivered in real time. We now have the ability to see where poachers and loggers will strike, helping us to stop them before the damage is done. So if I may, I'd like to offer a few examples of what technology is doing for wildlife today. So first of all, poachers don't strike in random. They follow patterns, choosing places and times when animals are most vulnerable, like watering holes or during the dry season, or migration corridors at dusk. The software PAWS, which stands for Protection Assistant for Wildlife Security, is a software that learns poachers' patterns, like strike times and hotspots, and it guides rangers to patrol smarter and faster. So as an example, in Uganda's Queen Elizabeth National Park, AI-led patrols doubled poaching detections, stopping crimes before they happened at a much higher rate. And in the Sri Pak Wildlife Sanctuary in Cambodia, 24 rangers in the PAWS-identified areas of the sanctuary removed over 1,000 snares, more than twice the number found before the software was deployed. And this technology is now being pushed all around the world to over 800 national parks and reserves where iconic animals like rhinos and elephants and other wildlife have been targets of poachers for decades. Another area that is seeing great strides is illegal wildlife trafficking, which is actually very close to my heart because it's one of the biggest problems that we're facing on the planet for wildlife. Illegal wildlife trafficking is one of the most devastating crimes on wildlife. And in the last 2 decades, it's gone more and more digital, with traffickers selling ivory and tiger skins and exotic pets online. Millions of posts appear daily, too many for humans to track. But now, advanced software using AI can scan the internet in real time to flag suspicious posts, identify endangered species, track suspicious sales, and trace trafficking networks. Similar software can even detect smuggled wildlife in X-ray scans with high accuracy, something that was not available 10 years ago. Together, these systems now are acting as digital rangers, and they're disrupting the traffickers and helping law enforcement act faster and catch those bad guys. Now, what about the environment? Every year, millions of acres of forest vanish to illegal logging, mining, and even agriculture. And often they're spotted too late by the people who are supposed to be taking care of the region, or even too late by satellites. Artificial intelligence tools are now changing that. They can scan satellite images daily, spotting early signs of deforestation, of mining or logging, sending real-time alerts to rangers and the authorities, who now can react before the damage spreads. One example, the nonprofit Amazon, uses an AI tool that detects real-time deforestation in the Amazon, and also things like illegal mining, and sending real-time alerts to rangers, giving them the ability to act within hours instead of weeks or even months, giving them the chance to act before more damage occurs. And let's not forget our oceans. Today, latest technology analyzes data from underwater microphones, satellites, and ship tracking systems to detect whale calls, predict whale presence, and then send alerts to small boats and large ships, giving onboard crew the time to slow down or reroute to avoid collisions with whales, dolphins, manatees, and other marine species. This type of innovation is just a fraction of the ongoing AI initiatives in marine conservation. The integration of AI technologies is rapidly expanding, offering innovative solutions to address the complex challenges facing our oceans and our planet. Now, let's face it, there are huge concerns about using AI technology these days. I'm a conservationist. I have them myself. We've all heard about the heavy use of resources and its potential environmental impact. However, AI also holds incredible promise for the future of conservation. And if there's one thing that I know, is that if something can help to save a species, whether it's on a medical side or whether it's on conservation side, it may be worth exploring. But let's talk about where we really should go and what we should look at before we even consider that kind of technology. So before evaluating any new project that may involve AI technology, it's important that the measurable benefits above and beyond outweigh the existing methods used today, from protecting wildlife to preserving habitats. And along with that, ethical and responsible use is essential. Technology used for conservation solutions must never harm or disrupt ecosystems. It must always respect the environment it's meant to protect. Additionally, any tool or project should work across different regions and species, and it needs to be effective for the long term and not just for a short-term fix. And finally, it needs to be combining global expertise with strong local collaboration, with partners in conservation that can ensure that these projects have the widest and most meaningful impact and become true game changers. Now, a lot of this new technology and a lot of these new ways of helping wildlife is very exciting. But people ask me all the time, what can they do now to help wildlife? Well, there's actually quite a bit. And here are just a few things that each one of us can do. If you're traveling and you choose to go to an exotic area or you wish to go see wildlife, choose to visit ethical sanctuaries and do ethical safaris, not going to traditional zoos or areas where you can see animals in captivity for your entertainment purposes. Support organizations that are transparent about their impact. And definitely do your homework on how the money is spent with any conservation organization that you want to support. When you're online, please say no to wildlife exploitation by not liking or sharing harmful posts. Every time you do, the algorithm will consider that worth pushing that post over and over again. So instead of actually saying something and making a comment, go in and report it as abusive content. And if enough people do that, those kind of posts will be eliminated and will no longer be available online. And then we can all do more by pushing for stronger laws to protect wildlife, such as the bill that's available right now, which is the Captive Primate Safety Act, which is there to ban primates as pets, or the Wildlife Conservation and Anti-Trafficking Act, which is there to treat trafficking as organized crime, is still a bill and needs to be put into law. You can write to your elected officials and tell them to turn these bills into the laws today. Now, just as important, avoid any activities that exploit animals. That means please don't do any elephant rides or go to dolphin shows. And more importantly, when you're in any kind of land where you see animals, where you can have a selfie taken with that animal, do not support that. That animal was probably taken from the wild. And once it's no longer a baby or no longer attractive to travelers, that animal will most likely just be eliminated or thrown back into the wild where it has no chance of surviving. And small choices count too, like using mineral-based reef-safe sunscreen and respecting wildlife spaces when visiting national parks. Do not endanger your life or the animal's life by trying to take that National Geographic picture and getting too close to wildlife. And eating less meat, even once a week, can help slow deforestation caused by cattle ranching and can save huge amounts of water that wildlife and humans rely on to survive. So together, these are just some of the small steps you can take in real time, and they also offer real change. And if you want more, you can actually go and check out our website, which has hundreds of small things that you can do to make a difference. Thank you very much for listening to today's talk. And we would love to stay connected with you beyond today. You can check out our website, follow our journey, and get updates on our projects via our social media channel, or sign up for our newsletter. It's the best way to stay in touch and be part of the SAFE community. And then we also have currently a fundraiser going through mid-October with a matching grant of $20,000. And wow, if we can do that, we can replenish our emergency fund, which has been depleted this year because we've had to respond to so many recent urgent conservation and rescue projects. So every dollar ensures that we can continue to step in quickly when wildlife and habitats are in crises or when an emergency rescue operation is underway to save a life. And you can double your impact today so that we can be ready for the next emergency. Now, at the beginning of today's talk, you heard Ray and myself talk about some bleak numbers when it comes to conservation. And yes, this is a very difficult and crucial time for wildlife. And this is why we really have to consider all of the greatest options that are available to us today, including technology that is new and may empower us to do more faster and have greater impact to save wildlife. Because the truth is, these animals that you're seeing on this screen here could disappear in your lifetime. unless we decide that extinction is not their destiny. And it's going to be humanity. It's going to be people like us and the choices that we make who will save endangered species and wildlife and their habitat. And technology is simply one of the tools to help make that happen faster. I work with communities all across the world, and these are people who are on the forefront of protecting these animals. But there are tools that we can use on our side here that it can make their job easier and make it so that together we can ensure that our planet and all of its inhabitants have a fighting chance to survive into the future. If we combine human compassion with the power of artificial intelligence and the latest technologies available today, we can create a future for wildlife that will be resilient for the future to come. The choice is ours, but the time must be now. Thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate your time and your interest in our work to protect wildlife and the planet. And I believe very strongly that together we can make a real difference for generations to come. JP, it's all yours.
Thank you, Linda, and also Ray and Tony. All presentations were great, and it's a lot to take in. I can see we have already a few questions come in, but if you have a question that you haven't asked yet, please use the questions box on your control panel to submit. Remember that any questions that aren't answered today will be addressed via email. And with this, we'll dive into the Q&A, and our first question is, how can AI, sensors, and data analytics make conservation more proactive instead of reactive? Tony, do you mind taking the lead with this one?
That is a great question because interestingly, when we started this project, AI in terms of naming it, had not really come into its own, but yet everything that Professor Prince of Wageningen University had been doing regarding animal behavior would certainly be categorized as AI. So we really were using AI to analyze animal behavior even before the current regime, if you like, of AI existed. And I see this, and I think it came up numerous times in our presentation, actually as a game changer. So, large language models, agentic, all of those aspects of AI can be applied to animal behavior and allow us, because all of this is based on prediction. We can predict something bad prior to it happening. We have the magic solution. The AI presents that opportunity together with data analytics.
Thank you, Tony. And here's another one. I would say this one is for Linda. What challenges do conservationists face when deploying technology in remote areas?
Wow, that's a really great question. And it's a problem that many conservation organizations are actually facing today, because remote areas is actually where the biggest problem is. So let me just give you a couple of the challenges that we're faced with. First of all, the high cost and the limited budget that many conservation organizations have to be able to deploy this kind of technology. Let's face it, to even develop the technology sometimes can be in the millions of dollars, and there's not many conservation organizations that have those kind of budgets. Also, the technology expertise and the training gaps is huge. Right now, there's really a shortage in skills from trained staff. It's just not there. And the capacity building for this software takes time. Rangers who already have demanding jobs need to now start learning about technology that they're just not familiar with. And so it's a real challenge. The other thing in really remote areas is the connectivity and the power infrastructure who people like ourselves in the Western world don't even think about. Poor internet is a problem that I face all the time when I'm in the Congo or in other remote areas like in Indonesia in Ujung Kulon National Park. And then the electricity challenges. How do you charge those drones, those cameras, and the servers that are off grid that you need to make all of this happen? And then, of course, we have to think about the data and the privacy concerns and regulatory issues and legal barriers. Think about it, drones, getting drone flight permissions and import-export rules. I have not been able to bring my drone technology with me in many countries because of the restrictions on having this kind of technology with me. And then lastly, really, we face issues with tech communities that don't really understand what we're trying to do and to get their buy-in. And that takes a lot of time. So all of those are really big issues that we face.
Thank you, Linda. And I've got another one for Tony. What lessons from the business and enterprise tech world can be applied to solving challenges in the wildlife protection?
Very much so. Again, a lot of the problems we have are related to fragmented activities, people doing things on their own in excellent intentions. But the more we can work together and the more we can coordinate and use technology to collaborate, and of course, project management is absolutely critical here. And that's where, we have huge amounts of experience. All the players every day run large, complex projects requiring cooperation, communication with our customers, with other players. And so we can bring that and we can improve that. And that's really one of the things I want enChoice to do, is to be a player as a coordinator, to be a project manager and help use what we've learned in our daily lives to better the planet.
Thank you very much, Tony. And I have another question that is, I would say, directed at you as well. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for technology professionals to contribute?
Another great question. One of the things we've found is, very few things, in fact, I'd say almost nothing, resonates with our people as much as this. It seems like Generation Z, this is just an absolute winner in their eyes. So we get constant requests from our employees, but also outside people for how can we help and what can we do. And again, what I would like to do, and I think Safe Worldwide shows a great model for this, is outsource little projects to people who are willing to donate their own time to achieve these results. If you look at what Safe Worldwide has done and the quality of it, all of this is done pro bono by people who are motivated and want to spend their own time. And many of these people are young people, teenagers, interns. So finding ways of parceling out contributions that people can make. Our people, experienced people learning all of these things and help us to contribute to this project. And as you saw in the presentation, it's critical for the planet that everybody gets involved in this.
Thank you, Tony. And we are running short on time, so this will be our last question. And I guess this one's for Linda again. How do partnerships between tech companies and conservation groups make projects like this possible?
These kind of cooperations take time. And you need to find the right technology company that is able to really build the right type of software that goes along with that. Technology companies today need to have a stake in conservation. They need to want to work with the conservation organizations and learn what are the biggest issues that they face and say, I might be able to come up with something like that. There's a lot of technology companies today that are partnering with the universities or just partnering with private reserve, such as enChoice having partnered with Velkevonden Private Reserve in South Africa. So there has to be a recognition from the technology companies that the need is there, that they have the ability to create the type of technology. They need to be open to talking to the conservation organizations, potentially form forums, and talk about the biggest challenges that wildlife face today, and be able to say, we can help create those solutions. So technology companies have to reach out to conservation organization, and conservation organization need to reach out to technology corporations and universities to say, we have a need, and are you able to fill that need?
Thank you, Linda. So we are out of time for today, but I would like to remind you that any questions that we're not able to get to during today's session will be addressed via email. And you will also receive an email within the next 24 hours containing a link to the recorded version of this presentation. So this concludes today's webinar. I want to thank Linda, Ray, and Tony for their presentations, but I especially want to thank everyone else for taking the time to join us today. I just want to remind you again about Safe Worldwide's Voices for Life fundraiser. You can donate by scanning the QR code on your screen, and remember, all contributions will be matched up to $20,000 through October 15th. Please feel free to share this with others so it can reach as many people as possible and raise the funds needed to make a real impact. You'll find the Safe Worldwide and enChoice website links on your screen, and if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to reach out at info@safeworldwide.org or info@enchoice.com. And let's also stay connected with Safe Worldwide and Spark. Help us build a community that not only raises awareness, but also takes action to protect rhinos, endangered species, and vulnerable wildlife everywhere. I truly hope we can count on everyone's help and support in saving rhinos, endangered species, and all the vulnerable wildlife that need us. Thank you again for your time. Have a terrific rest of your day. Take care.